Employers, when they're looking to hire somebody, if they're looking for their ideal candidate, first of all, they've written the ideal candidate in the job description. So the first thing that anybody who's applying for work can do is read the ad and then tailor their materials, their application materials, to the content that's in the ad. But what most employers want is they want somebody who has an open heart and a willingness to learn. Because if you go in thinking that you already know everything there is to know about the job, then you're not going to be willing or necessarily be flexible enough to change if the employer decides they want to go in a different direction. So employers are really looking to hire somebody who's capable, who has a basic skill set, they have an understanding of what it means to be a good employee, to be both a leader and a follower, but also somebody who is just willing to learn. That's so important. You know, confidence versus cockiness.
The perfect employee, or the ideal employee, would be what I would refer to as a high energy, outgoing individual. For them to have some type of financial education or background, to me that would be a plus, but that's not necessary. We're looking for individuals within my company as I'd said, they're outgoing. I want them to be very personable, very positive individuals, very comfortable in the team-oriented type of situation. In banking, with those types of individuals, we can teach them banking, because banking's not rocket science. But the type of personality that we need to make sure that we're giving the best customer service is what we have to have. Because in banking, as I'd said, there's 23 other companies here in Bowling Green, and we're all competing for the same population and being able to provide the services and products to all the same population. So to us, the only difference is going to be the people that we work with that makes that difference.
So there are several things that make an ideal intern or employee, or make someone ideal for me. First, appearance. I want you to present professionally, appear put together, to make sure that you are using correct grammar, whether that's in a resume and cover letter, or even in speaking, that you're speaking professionally and grammatically correct. Also that leave cell phones on vibrate or silent, something like that. Please don't answer your phone in an interview. Also, I want to see that somebody is a team player, that they can receive feedback, and that they can grow from that they can take that and use that, but that they also, that they can contribute ideas, and that they can be a part of the team, and that they're not so shy and quiet, that they're not going to be to be an asset as far as that goes. I'm also looking for people that I feel like are going to not only present well to colleagues, but to present well to our clientele, because sometimes we can come across very well to our peers, but not to someone that is not a peer. So I want to make sure that there's somebody that's versatile in that area, that they're flexible, because I don't know of any day in my life, but definitely in my professional career, that played out exactly the way that I thought it was going to. So the name of the game sometimes is flexibility. So I want somebody that's going to be flexible and can kind of go with the flow. Somebody that is willing to do whatever it takes, that's willing to go that extra mile, that's not saying, sorry, I clocked out at 4 o'clock. Deal with it until tomorrow, that kind of thing. So somebody that is that really does have care and concern and is willing to go that extra mile if needed.
One of the best ways a person can get prepared for the interview process or to be prepared to work is just to research the field. Interview people who do the kind of work that you want to do. Find out what their world of work is like. What's a typical day like for them? What do they like about it? What don't they like about it? get as much information as you can in advance of what that field is like, so that when you go into the interview, you can show that you have knowledge. I'll give you an example of a student who was an accounting major all through college, went to her first job interview, got hired, got on the job, and found out she hated accounting. You might be thinking, well, 4 years of preparation got them to be an accountant. What they finally learned was they liked the act of doing the work. They just didn't want to do it all day long. It was easy to do 3 hours a day, not 7.5 or 8 hours a day. And so just having knowledge of the field that you're going into is really helpful. You know, reading articles, interacting with people, just be knowledgeable about that field is so important.
I would encourage anyone that's coming in for an interview, whether it's at a bank or anywhere, dress professionally as best you can. Be clean cut, clean shaven. And I know that not everyone can afford a suit. I'm not saying you have to wear a suit, but what you do have, make sure it's clean and ironed. I know that seems a little trivial, but it's that first impression. You get one first impression, and that's the first to where that individual that you're speaking with is going to actually take you seriously enough, because if the individual doesn't come in taking attention to themselves for that, then it's going to be difficult for them to overcome some of the answers that they may get during the interview. I would also recommend that they do a little bit of research upon the company that they're going to be interviewing with. Understand what position that you're going to be applying for, and then you're going to be asked what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses as an individual. And then I would apply those particular strengths towards that particular position. I would also be honest and talk about the weaknesses that you have. However, utilizing some of the other strengths that you have, how you can overcome that in order to make that a positive would be something I would encourage them to do.
Well, one, I think they've got to have the educational background. Now, that's different for a case manager than it is for a therapist. Case managers have to have certain degrees, but they don't have to have any type of a licensure or anything like that. Obviously, as a therapist, you have to have a license or be license eligible. We provide supervision for the biggest majority of our therapists, so we can help in that licensure process. But I think getting to know the populations that we serve, getting to know the agency, getting to know kind of our philosophy on what families look like, what counseling looks like, what our role in the community as well as our role with other professionals look like. Again, taking time to make sure that they proofread any documents that they may be bringing, that they come with questions. I like when people ask me questions because it may not have been something that I thought about, but it also shows that they've been thinking about it and that they have certain areas of interest or certain things that they, want to know about. So I like being asked questions as well. One thing that I do look at when I'm looking at a resume, if somebody's coming straight out of college or straight out of graduate school, I don't expect an extensive history as far as now, I would look to see if their internship and practicum and those areas where they did have some practice and experience, that it correlates or could work well with our agency. If it's something like addictions, that's wonderful, but we don't do a whole lot of addictions. So if that's what they focused a lot of their time on, then they may not be as happy at our agency as they would somewhere that focused more on that. So look at their experience and their background. I'll also look at if they do have a longer history, how long did they stay at those jobs? Did they stay at those jobs for 10 years and now their husband's got a job somewhere else and so they've moved and that's the reason that they're looking, for another job? Or do they job hop? Or are there large gaps in time? And maybe there are large gaps, and that's explainable and very understandable why there are certain gaps. But for them to be able to explain that and be willing to explain, what is this 5-year gap here that I don't see any work experience? Or I think that's one of the biggest things is that job history. So making sure that their education and their skills line up with what we're looking for, but then looking at that job history and does it relate to what we're doing? How extensive is it? How many jobs are there in a certain period of time?
Employers, well, people in general, love to talk about what they do. If you don't believe me, think about the last time you were at a Thanksgiving dinner and Uncle Mort was sitting at the end of the table talking about everything that he did at work. People love to talk about what they do. If you can find someone who's interested in doing, who does what you're interested in doing, they will make time for you. Now, they're not going to make a whole day necessarily, but if you make an appointment to talk with them for 20 minutes about what they do, and you go in with a list of specific questions that you want answered, most people are willing to carve out some time to help a new professional join the field that they are so passionate about.
I think ingrained within our company, we're always trying to help others, and the way we look at it, we're serving the communities. So in a way we can help. I truly believe that paying it forward, and I know that's kind of corny, but that's what we try to do. And I know if I can help someone, hopefully they'll do the same for others.
I try to be as open as I can to questions, emails, interviews, phone calls, that kind of thing. Actually, a lot of times when I get an email or get a phone call asking questions, I'll say, do you want to just set up a time and come out and talk? Because that's usually easier. That gives somebody time to kind of line out questions, but then also time for us to talk as long as we want to talk about something. So I think probably any class that I've ever been in, helped teach or presented at, I have given my email address, phone number, said if you need anything, whether it's specific to counseling or whether it's looking at licensure or just getting more information, please feel free to contact me because I really do want to be helpful to the next generation of those. You know, because there are things that I wish I knew and want to make sure that others know.
The world of work is kind of a tricky place. Some employers appreciate that the contact, hey, I submitted my application, just wanted to see where you are in the process. Other employers are offended by that. So I think it's a really fine line as to whether or not you reach out. I find that an email is less threatening than a phone call. So when you submit an application, give them a couple of weeks, because although your application is the most important thing to you, when an employer is hiring someone, it's just one more thing they have to do in addition to all the other things they have to do in their day. And sometimes processes can slow up in an organization. I know several of the places where I've worked, it can take months for an application to get to the interview stage. And so people had long forgotten they'd even applied when it wasn't the college was uninterested, but just the business of running a college gets in the way. And so I think there's a fine line. Do you reach out to follow up? Absolutely. How quickly and in what way depends on the industry.
For individuals, I think, again, I'm older. I think a note is very, very good. If you can handwrite a note to say thank you for your time, would go, in my opinion, much longer than an email or a phone call. I think would mean a lot to the individual that you had the interview with.
I like it when somebody follows up. It shows me that there's some interest, you know, that they're serious about it. They're not just sending stuff out blindly. Also, if for some reason I've happened to overlook an email or something like that, it can also help me to go back and search and find. So I do like it when somebody calls and follows up. One thing that I don't like, though, is if I tell you I'm going to call you the end of the week for you to call the middle of the week or the beginning of the week to ask questions, because I do what I say I'm going to do, and sometimes when you don't give that person time to finish the interviews or time to finish or whatever it is that they need to do, it can be a little frustrating. So I do like for people to follow up. Like I said, it shows interest. It shows that they, you know, that they're serious about it. But then also give the interviewer time to go through the process.